family, do they know yet that you're an FBI agent?
My family knew I was an FBI agent, obviously, both my own family and then my extended family, but they didn't know I worked undercover. I didn't think that was a good idea. I tell the story that when I was a cop, I came home from the midnight shift. We had just been married. I was from a police family, so I understood police work. My wife wasn't. So I got jumped in a bar and came home with the 2 black eyes and a separated shoulder, and my wife yelled at me for apparently getting my butt kicked at work, but it really frightened her. And we made a deal very early in our marriage that what I did at work stayed at work. So once I transitioned into undercover work, I didn't want to bother my wife and my kids about what I did. So they knew I was an FBI agent, but not what I did at work.
So were you gone regularly, kind of like, you know how Piston was gone for a long time? Was that also with you when you were gone?
I was gone, especially when my kids were young. And again, you talk about the book that I wrote. I wrote the book not for general consumption. I wrote it to thank my wife and to explain to my children what I had been doing.
That was literally your motive?
That was the motive. I never intended this to be published or being out in the open. I wanted to thank my wife. She raised and took care of our family. I have 3 productive, healthy, wonderful children. It's all a result of my wife taking care of them when I was out playing cops and robbers.
Wow.
And my kids, they didn't understand. When they're little, they don't know you're an FBI agent. They just know you're doing weird things. I tell the story that my son was homesick from school. He was little, 7 or 8 years old. I was working the night. I came home, went to bed. He didn't know I was home. I didn't know he was home. The doorbell rang. I peeked out the window, and I went downstairs, and my son's at the top of the stairs. I don't know he's there, and I answer the door with a gun behind my back. And my son, who was 7 or 8 at the time, never told us. He told that story years later at Christmas time.
Wow.
And I wanted to explain to them, because they'd see me in the basement with a recorder, just odd things that kids don't normally see their parents doing or they don't understand. And then I'd leave for months, weeks. There was one case I was gone 2.5 years. Permanently?
You're gone 2.5 years, they don't see you at all?
Bouncing back and forth about once every 2 months or so.
Got it.
During that time, my kid, he was in the 5th grade. He got in a fight in school because another kid teased him. His parents were divorced. His father was gone, so he decided to handle it on the playground. It's just a crazy lifestyle. So I wanted my wife and my kids to understand, because they made the same sacrifices that I was making.
What was their reaction when they read the book? I heard they read in less than a week or less than a day, some story like that. What was their reaction?
What happened was, when I first wrote it for them, I didn't realize when you write a book, you don't have to write the whole book. So I wrote 357 pages, and I gave it to my children and my wife at a Christmas. I put it under the tree one year. I think it was 2014 or 15. My wife and my daughter went upstairs that day and came down the following day, having read the whole story and not knowing a lot of it. So they were first exposed to it, and then it explained a lot. My kids all say to me now, oh, now I get it, now I got it. So
were they crying? Were they wow?
Yeah,
were they flabbergasted?
It was actually emotional because, and again, for my wife, she didn't know the situations that I was involved in, which I didn't want her to know. She didn't join the FBI. She wasn't responsible for what I did. But, you know, to get up in the middle of the night and then leave and not come home for 4 or 5 days, just the family life of an undercover agent is difficult. And again, at the end of my career, I always had an interest in writing. I wanted to try to write something. I wanted to do that all my life. And so that's how I figured I would try it, by explaining to them, the people most important to me, what I was doing.